Hey family, what's
Happy
going
Monday.
on, y'all? What's going on? It's your girl, your cousin Tanisha Peoples live with my homeboys, my partners in crime, Mr. Jason B. Allen and Mr. Nehemiah Frank, and we are the trio that talks that real shit every Monday at 11 a.m. Central and noon Eastern. Today we have two special guests, as always, but they every Monday we got special guests, but they super special. We go introduce them. We got Ms. Ariel DeNey Rainey, and she is the founder of Hustle Mommies and also the Mary Jane Group. And then we have Mr. Chris Brown repping ATL, and he just want to be known as a strategist, y'all. He said, "Don't put my business in the streets." So Chris is just a strategist. So how y'all feeling today?
We're doing good. Well, at least I am. I'm speaking for you, Chris. Sorry. I'm feeling great. I had my tea this morning.
Oh no, you better add me into that. We both feeling good. We feeling great this morning. It's Monday. We here.
Right. That's the blessing itself that we here. Bottom line.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Jay Neal, how y'all doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a little sad. I heard that Coco Gauff, the breakout tennis star who was 15, she's 17 now. She tested positive for COVID-19, and she will not be competing in what would have been her first Olympics. So
they just need to cancel it.
So
yeah. I mean, meanwhile, Sha'Carri sitting over here untouched, like, tap me in, coach.
Yeah, like tap me in, right?
The ancestors, like, oh, y'all gonna play with Kari? All right, watch this.
Right.
But I mean, we got to be honest about this. Like, has the Olympics ever really been about people of color? Like, that's why I don't understand why people are just like, yeah, we got to watch. I'm like, every year it's something. Like, every time they have it, it's always something that comes up involving race. And so I'm just like, until they change their culture, I'm not supporting it. I don't care who run it. I don't care who's doing what. Like, if they're not showing they respect us, then I'm not with it. So that's just me. However, for those people who do watch it and support it, more power to you.
I mean, when they did that to Sha'Carri, at that point I was just like, and then also the sisters in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
testosterone levels were high. I was just like, man, we need our own Olympics, period. Like, can we get some of the billionaires to, put on and we start our own stuff?
Yeah, most definitely. I agree.
Yeah. But y'all, we starting something new. I don't know if y'all saw our updated graphic with our Easter pictures and everything. So we want some new things. We got our Easter outfits on and stuff, looking sharp, y'all, casket sharp. But we starting something new. We always start out talking about, current events, and we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna make it more formalized and call it the T with TDRS, y'all. So along with what happened with, sis not being able to compete in the Olympics, I was, doing some Facebook scrolling over the weekend and saw this article about a black parent, a black woman in Virginia who was ousted, who had to resign from PTA because she was going in about people who were against critical race theory, and she said, "Let them all die." So how do y'all feel about that? Like, here's the article on the screen, and
well, I mean, it was on Fox. I mean, what do you expect?
That's true. That part.
was she one of us, or was she white?
No, she was black. She was white.
Yeah. Oh, Fairfax County. That's where I went to high school and middle school. Yeah, they pushing back over there. They should. I see it. It's a little conservative down that direction.
Yeah, it is.
City. So I mean.
Yeah. But is this kind of cancel culture? I mean, because white people get away with saying shit like that all the time. Like,
they're saying it every day. I
right.
mean, come on. Like, I think it's a little bit of cancel culture. But I mean, even here in Georgia, like the way that, our counterparts are acting in Gwinnett County and the things that they can say in board meetings about our children, our teachers, black board members. Come on. They're saying this every day, everywhere across the nation. And as soon as a person of color says something in defense of what they believe, it's like, oh my God, it's the end of the world and they need to lose their job and their council and we won't support them. And then it's black people that, uplift it. But I'm challenging us as a people to say we need to do better about, attacking our own. We're so quick. Like, number one, it's like anybody black, okay, we on it. Like, we got to say something negative. We got to, jump on a bandwagon. We're tearing them down. And I'm like, we have to change that culture before we want anybody else to respect us.
Agreed.
I kind of think like this. Sis knew when she got on that platform and stated that there were going to be repercussions for her saying that in that context. I understand the frustration. I understand why she was upset. But when you go and you say something like that, and you live in Virginia, out of all
Come on,
places,
girl. Come
what
on.
did you really expect to transpire? And what did you think was going to be the pushback? Because you're still living in a very racist state. I have
Right.
friends that live in Virginia, and they know that some areas you can't go in. Like they didn't even feel comfortable driving from Norfolk to Chicago because they said those back roads is a whole different type of experience down there. So I feel like that was a moment of self accountability. She knew what she was doing. So if she felt that way and she stated it, why are we going to give pushback because she was removed? She stated something knowing she had her position, she had things on the line. So I'm not going to attack her. I'm not going to say
Look
she
at
was
Tanisha
wrong or
ready to
anything
talk.
because she knew what she was doing.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
I
Now,
love that. I love that.
everybody didn't see The Color Purple when Oprah Winfrey then went out after that little white lady, and then what happened? Her ass was in jail for how long? Okay, so you don't just, you got, as a black person, the repercussions, they're always gonna be harsh, and that's what happened. I think it's harsh.
Man, flip a damn table. I'm flipping the table right now because, and I agree, there are going to be repercussions, but I think that at this point in the environment that we live in, we got to be willing to sacrifice shit like that.
Yeah.
Because realistically, if we're not, like, Sis may have lost her position as I think she was like the vice president or president of the PTA. It's not, I mean, she ain't losing no money, but it's like the message that she was able to send that got, that was published on Fox News and whatever other, station was necessary. And so I think that there needs to be more of us, because we were having this conversation last week about how there needs to be more abolitionists and liberators in these systems to destroy them and break them down. And we can't keep running around here scared and, scared of what we gonna say and scared of losing these positions because there ain't gonna be repercussions. Otherwise, we gonna still be in the same position.
Right.
I mean, fuck a PTA.
Yeah. But I think, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, brother.
No, just make sure that you're very strategic in what you're doing, understanding that your actions and repercussions and that your points of recourse and you're eliminating barriers of entry. There's a lot of opportunity to come in all of these issues, but we have to be very strategic about what we're doing, knowing that the fact that we're in a very intense time in America right now, and and not just in America, but in any person's locality where your town, and hopefully that we're looking that you was there to serve the kids in the role of PTA. That doesn't stop. So don't let a position offset or repercussion for something offset what our goal and mission is. And I think too often that we get off course of that.
That's a fact.
I totally agree.
Since I want to add also.
Oh, go ahead, Ariel. I'm sorry, I couldn't see you.
All this did was give her opportunity to speak on her passion, because now we're not even in Virginia and we're talking about it. We're in different places in this country. So sometimes God allow things happen because you have to go through another door. So hopefully Sis create something, maybe a curriculum or a program that teaches and focuses on critical race theory, to where she's actually bringing forth a solution instead of complaining and showing her her disappointment with it being an issue in the first place. So maybe this is an opportunity for her to focus in on that and she look at it from that perspective.
But does that support the whole theory of that whole concept of being able to study race theory ultimately, because we know it, but what are the triggers? One thing I know that, as our society, that we're hurting badly. We put on these big fronts on the front end, but behind the scenes that people are actually going through a lot right now. We just went through COVID, and these things are actually documented.
We're going through COVID.
Right. And so if you read the federal documentation from the CDC, it actually outlines that those disproportionate communities, the crime will go up, domestic violence will go up, and those triggers will be identified through actions. And so we have to look at what's really going on and use this. We have to use opportunities again. Through any course of dismay, there's always going to be opportunities. And so we have to find those leaders. There's a lack of leadership out here these days. And so it's hard for people to make decisions, but we have to stick to the core values of the movement, which has always been led by young people and the knowledge of our elders who came before us. We've been through this before. There's opportunities and we can make it through this as well.
I love that. I just want to add that, well, sis, I know we get ready to close out, but I just want to add that a lot of times we focus on the person's behavior and their action and not the issue. And so I appreciate this conversation because I really feel like we got a chance to really focus on what the issue is. Go ahead, sis.
Yeah. Well, we're not gonna get into because we need to go ahead and get into the conversation. Do you love us, Mary Jane? So I don't know if y'all familiar with Brother Rick James. He had the song Mary Jane. Obviously, Mary Jane is weed, and the technical term, the marijuana. I call it reefer. All right, reefer. Like throwback. But today, y'all, we're talking
Mary
about
Reefer James.
What'd you say?
I said Mary Reefer James.
Right, Mary Reefer gave her a nickname. So today, y'all, we're talking about the recent, well, not so recent, but the legalization of marijuana and the criminalization of Black people in marijuana. So before we even get started on this conversation, we need y'all to tune in, share it out, because this is an important conversation, especially for y'all smokers, because we're talking about advocacy or the users. Let me say, because everybody don't smoke weed. But with the users, everybody that takes enjoys cannabis.
And those who are invested in it.
Right, that part too. So y'all share this episode out before we get started. We're gonna be dropping reminders throughout to let y'all, share it out. But Chris and Ariel, I just want to give y'all kind of like an opportunity to talk about the work that y'all do in the industry, so our viewers can know, where y'all coming from with it. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Ladies first.
All right, awesome. So as many know, I'm the founder of Hustle Mommies, which is a nonprofit organization focused on moms in the urban inner city of Chicago and beyond. And while I was doing this work, helping moms who lost their kids to gun violence and things of that nature, I noticed a connection. Our communities that have faced social, economic disadvantages, when we don't have an opportunity, we go hustle. We've been doing this for generations. And what I noticed was that there was going to be more and more white people coming into an industry that we made millions and billions of dollars on the legacy market, which means that we've been doing it before it was a legal thing, a business thing, right? And they're going to come in and make money off something that our baby daddies, our brothers, our cousins, our uncles, and granddaddies have been going to jail for. And so for me, I lived in LA, I worked in the entertainment industry, but I dabbled in the cannabis industry. So I dated a guy that owned dispensaries. I met some very successful people, some Armenians, all kinds of people who have grow houses and everything, and really learned the industry. So when I came back to Chicago in 2014, when they first started trying to bring the industry here, in those meetings where I was networking and meeting people, guess who was there? White men. That's all I saw. White men there were corporate lawyers from Wall Street, had investments, people who handed money down to them, were getting in this industry about to cash out. And there's some of the ones who have dispensaries now that are very successful. So I got into this industry because while I'm advocating for moms in the urban inner city community, I want to be able to help them to get into the industry that has helped to single-handedly destroy their households, whether it's from their children, their baby fathers, or whatever, because the foundation of the Black community is the family. So fast forward to 2019, I met a guy named Teddy who started this company called PharmaCann. And from there, we connected and we partnered and we started the Mary Jane Group. I came to him with the concept and the proposal. He came on board as an investor. And currently we have applications in for a license for a dispensary, as well as from growth centers and for a transportation company. So I got into this work because I wanted to make sure that we weren't forgotten about. Black people are getting the tail end of this amazing opportunity to actually make some money that can change our communities. And when you think about it, if you on the south or west side of Chicago, the guys that's outside that's saying, I got that loud pack or trying to sell weed, imagine if we give them peddler license and they actually can provide for their families in a legal capacity. So we need to look at the full spectrum, how this economic boom is going to affect white people more than Black people. And this is something that we've been getting harassed by the police for years. So I'm an advocate for those who are convicted felons who have got into this space. I'm also an advocate for helping our people to be able to make money from it. And furthermore, when we make all this money in these different states, how are you giving money back to reinvest into the communities that have been affected by you making this a legal substance in our country?
Come on. sir.
Yeah, I love all of that.
All right, Chris, you on deck.
So yeah, so I got into this industry. I founded Care for Georgia, which is Cannabis Assets Reform and Education. It actually initially transpired when I ran for city council in 2017, when we had the decriminalization of marijuana on the table here in Atlanta. And because of my past work, in municipal government, I was compelled to jump in, and people were saying, don't jump in because, you're running for office and you see that smile right there, that smile, I mean, you're high, you know what I mean? So there's going to be this whole stigma behind.
From a smile.
Yeah. They say when you're high, you start getting the giggles and stuff. So just compelled to understand how it affects black and brown people. And you're talking about decriminalizing something that I was compelled to move forward and help convene a town hall, among other issues, but decrim was one of those things. And so we were successful at being able to pass decrim here in Atlanta, that then succeeded over to the state capitol to kind of further the work. Because my background is in organizing and policy, I got more deep down into more so lobbying, community lobbying at the Capitol. Really getting a real hands-on, deep down feel for what was going on and knowing how things were maneuvering. We had to stay abreast, and like I said, it was founded as a coalition of faith-based communities, civic organizers, activists, advocates, to kind of help bring social change around cannabis. We've been successful in those efforts, and it wasn't just us, but there's also some of those kind of, I advocate from a medicinal standpoint. So, so just understanding, not necessarily for its recreational uses, but for its medicinal benefits, and being able to use those angles as such. Understanding the boom of agribusiness and agri-tech, as an industry, not just the cannabis industry, there's a range of opportunities. So, and during this time, I got an education. I was doing work in education, so I was seeing all these different opportunities and started learning the history and learning about UGA and 1890s and what those land grant institutions was afforded. And you started to really kind of put things together, which is non-traditional with what people really were saying on the forefront. But those are things that were actually moving policy. Using that black and white to leverage our position, but needing the activism on the front end to bring awareness. And so here we are in 2021. We should have some great news this week in terms of, the cultivation here in Georgia. A lot of people, it wasn't necessarily for any. We wanted total. There was a lot of people who wanted recreation, and felt that this was not progress. But here we are in 2021, and we're making progress and making steps. And so I did 2020. I started writing a white paper around Compassion Act 2020, and so we're leveraging the same framework for Compassion 2022, which would take all the things about social equity, dispensing, and other opportunities that had been ripped out of the first legislation, because there was actually an original paper. They ripped it to pieces, and gave us what we got now. Most people don't know during those sessions because there wasn't many people there, but during 2022 was set to be the original year to review social equity and minority participation. And me personally is trying to hold people to that and use this opportunity with COVID. There has been some R&D around COVID and cannabis. And so we get to use the scientific pieces and advances that we've had across the country and abroad to leverage what we got here going on in Georgia. Georgia can be one of the best states that we have in this game, especially from a medicinal standpoint. People sometimes argue the fact that recreation and total decriminalization as a whole just basically alleviating the plant, but there's processes always. We've never seen that just really happen and then it be a benefit for Black people. Right. And then we also have to have our own plan. And so what I'm seeing is opportunity for us to develop a plan while also benefiting on the progression of the industry itself. So I've been knee deep in it, just along with some of the issues that happen inside the Black community. But it's just it's a wealth of opportunity. This is our form of reparation as an opportunity. I believe they're gonna give us 40 acres and a mule. I don't believe so, but I support those who advocate for it and find this area of interest as a form of new reparation for Black Americans.
So let me ask y'all this, because I'm kind of I'm on a different side of, and I wholeheartedly support us being able to be entrepreneurs in this space and us being able to gain some kind of reparations or restitution from how many Black brothers and sisters have been in prison for selling weed, using weed, the destruction of Black families because of it. And I actually look at it as almost the equivalent of the crack epidemic, but that's a whole nother story. When I see this, when we're talking about the legalization of weed, and specifically here in Chicago, like they legalized it, but they tax like crazy. And so because they tax like crazy and because you don't have access to the dispensaries, people still selling on the streets. But what we're seeing is an uptick of young people smoking weed. Like I've gone into classrooms and the classrooms smell like just loud. What'd you say?
I said, are you serious? Really?
Yeah, that's serious. Like some kids are like, man, I gotta.
Oh, that was me in high school too.
Yeah, I mean, but it was weird to me because it wasn't like that when I was in high school, and so it's like if we're thinking about it,
the kids are not smoking in the classroom. The kids just smell like smoke because they were smoking before they got.
Sometimes they come to school and they smell. They have the smell on them. Some of them get out of their parents' car. And the smell is on them as well. Tanisha, I'm glad that you brought the youth into this conversation because
let me
go ahead.
Put a question out there first, and then we can go ahead and go in. So, is the legal or illegal distribution of cannabis harmful or beneficial, or more harmful or more beneficial to the Black community, and why?
What a question.
You said, is it more harmful to legalize?
What do y'all think? Is it do the benefits outweigh the harms, or vice versa? What do y'all think?
The legalization of it?
The legalization, the illegal distribution, because again, we're seeing so many more people like using it. We don't know what's in the weed on the street, stuff like that. Like, what do y'all think?
So I feel like this. I'll speak for Chicago. So we know they taxing like crazy in Chicago. These dispensaries, they're making money, but I think because Illinois is so new to this, like California weed is better than Chicago weed, and it's still cheaper. And that's just a fact. So the truth of the matter is that the legacy market, the streets, are still doing better than the dispensary on the prices. And people rather go to support their local weed man, especially when they know that they're supporting a Black-owned entrepreneur, because that's what it is. So I think that in a sense, it is helping the streets on the legal capacity. But when you look at the legal front of it, the truth of the matter is that marijuana is still an illegal controlled substance. So that puts a lot of Black men and women who are illegally selling weed at risk from catching felonies and going to jail, especially if you're pushing pounds and pounds of weed and you're the source or whatever the case may be. So there's like pros and cons to both sides, which is why more of our people should know what the MORE Act is and what's going on in that capacity, what legislators are debating about right now. Back in December, it passed the House, I believe. But what happened was a lot of us that's in the space did not support it because it does not allow those who have felonies to actually be in the space. And so you have to know what's going on the policy side. Another thing is, even if you get into the legal marijuana space, because it's a legal substance, you can't even do proper banking. You can't do proper tax write-offs or anything like that because it's a federal illegal substance. So there are a lot of different things that comes with being a legal marijuana business. I have my friend Hope Wiseman, who has Marion, Maine on the East Coast. She and I talk all the time about how she has a dispensary, but I don't think people really know what this is really like to have a marijuana business and you can't do proper banking, or you can't write off certain things because you're basically a legal but yet illegal drug dealer. So those are the pros and cons with it. And then you have to look at the simple fact that it's helping our community on the legal side, but it also put them at risk.
Yeah. Chris, you on mute.
Chris, you're muted.
So she's 100% right. Again, in all of those things, there's still opportunity, and this is going to be progress. And so there's always going to be a need for education. And so between education and those baby steps, you know what I mean? So we've been so hit by the war on drugs. And so, you know what I mean? And that's what California kind of came out of that piece with the licensing aspect of things. And now we're becoming progressive, more so state by state, even without federal legalization. So there's going to be people that don't support. There was people in Georgia that didn't support Georgia progression, but that means you don't support any progression. So you have to ask your question whether I would rather stay where I am or try to make some progress, and then use those opportunities to educate and get more people involved, because there's a very small group of people that actually get in for the progression side of things, especially those who really want to help benefit their people. The other factor is about the money. We know that there's a lot of money in the industry. There's a 15% increase in any job field in the cannabis industry versus any other industry that you may operate in. So those opportunities alone opens up, you know what I mean, so much other opportunities. So we have to, no matter what state you're in, like the Morris Act was there, but also get involved in your local politics. Local politics plays a lot of it because even your congressional people come from your local politics. And so until we start educating people, you know, I'm getting a lot of calls and I kind of bagged all the way out of the space a little bit, dealing with more educational needs and criminal justice reform needs. But as we talk about the cannabis space, we was on this 3-4 years ago and trying to get people on top of what was going on. We actually had a program since 2015, and we're just seeing the fruits from it. You know what I mean? Of the progression, and that actually stemmed from a 1980 Therapeutic Research Act. You see what I'm saying? So it goes back into the 80s. So when you start looking at policy and start going back and digging and using justification and using those things, it's going to give you those freedoms that we're looking as they tax. I hope those taxes are going back to your local communities. To make sure that programs are being funded. So if you're going to tax me for my medicine, it's no different than being in the pharmaceutical industry where you're going to pay insurance and be taxed on insurance and then paying that industry. But hopefully that we're designing our model to go back to help those people who was affected by the war on drugs and help those people who using it as medicinal purposes and help those people to advance to have money to put into an industry that they've been cashed out of.
Jay, you were trying to get in earlier. My bad. I wanted to get that question out, but I want to go ahead.
No, that was a good question. It actually allows me to do my public service announcement. So everybody knows I always have a text that I'm reading that connects to what we're talking about. So Black Fortunes talks about early Black families in America who were like wealthy. And I want to ask the experts this, right, Chris and Ariel, because I'm trying to make my point. So I'm creating a story. And these Black millionaires and billionaires in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they were using natural resources. Now I don't know where cannabis fits in as a natural resource, but when I think about this conversation and how they built wealth off of something that other people were already naturally using. Now I don't want to bring into the conversation, the war on drugs and opioids and how others are doing other things, right? I'll come back to that point later in this conversation, but I wanted to ask your thoughts on Black people building fortunes off of the cannabis industry and why more people should be, based off of the book, should be considering this industry.
Well, I guess I'll jump in more so because when we say cannabis, we don't look at the recreational or the smokable flower. We don't necessarily talk about CBD and the hemp plant, which is one of the most sustainable plants on this earth. We want to talk about all the uses and benefits of an evolving market that's not yet industry, that is so much opportunity. And us being here in Georgia, Jason, we were one of the places that grew a lot of hemp. Money was made out of hemp. Sales were made out of hemp. Books were made, paper products. You add hemp to concrete. You got things that's hard as steel. You got sustainability. That's why I talk about the agriculture industry and not just the cannabis industry. It's almost like talking about the rap industry compared it to the entertainment industry. Would you rather put yourself in a smaller box or put yourself in a bigger box where the opportunity are greater? Is greater. So as we talk about cannabis and the fortunes, again, there's a lot of work that we have to do to repair our lineage and knowing who we are and the opportunities, to help make sure that the generational cycle of opportunities that's going to be created with cannabis, there's better connectivity. There is a lot of opportunity out of this if we do it right. And we haven't seen, like I say, we look at Cali, but Cali, look how long Cali been in it. And they're still working at it. You know what I mean? And so people are still making progressions into what a perfect law or what this would look like. So we need more people educated around what's going on and the opportunities. So as it relates to the fortune, most of us didn't come in born with a silver spoon, and we didn't have all the things, but what we did have was some knowledge and some opportunity to compare our lineage and opportunities to know where our gifts came from, which is farming this land.
I agree. And not only that, like George Washington, the first president of the United States, actually was a hemp grower. He had that a part of his farming life. So I feel like that, there's opportunity now to have hemp farms. I know Sabrina Peterson in Atlanta has Pretty Girl Hemp, where she has an actual hemp farm and she sells hemp roll-ups and things like that. And she made 7 figures during the COVID pandemic year, 2020. So there's opportunities. And I think that we have to also look at there are ancillary businesses. So there's businesses where you touch the plant, such as the growers and the dispensary, but then you might be a lawyer, you might be a consultant, you might start a marijuana cannabis training program. There's opportunities for people to make millions and millions of dollars in this space, and you don't necessarily have to grow and sell weed. So we have to look at it that way as well. How can Black people also create generational wealth and a legacy in this market outside of just touching the plant? And that's where a lot of those who are convicted felons can come into play. If you can't grow and touch it, then hey, you might want to start some type of product that can help with the growing of the cannabis plant, or you can actually start a transportation company and hire drivers to transport it for you. So those are opportunities that we have to actually come into play to make money. And some people choose to start ancillary businesses because of what's going on when it comes to the federal policy where marijuana is still illegal. So they rather come in as a consultant and get their money and not have to worry about that I'm selling weed and I can't get a bank account because I'm a drug dealer, in so many words. So look at different opportunities to make money, because there are a lot of people who are not Black like us, who are in the cannabis space, who don't touch the plant, that is making some good coin. So setting up dispensaries, consulting, and all that.
So let me ask this, because that shit sounds great, right? It's like Black people being able to build these businesses in this industry. But the reality of it is that capitalism, for us to get our feet into, or get into this space, is not easy. We not just go walk in like a white man or a white woman and be like, I want this loan, I have this product, invest in me, and boom, we millionaires or billionaires. And so if y'all can talk about some of the obstacles that exist, the policy, particularly policy obstacles, is we've had a lot of conversations about, if you have a felony, I mean, in a lot of states, if you have a felony, you can't even vote. So they definitely not about to let you have a business. And so what does it look like to get around those obstacles, or what efforts are taking place to get around those obstacles? And another piece of that is, if you have been convicted, because we brought up reparations and restitution earlier, how does reparations and restitution look for those who have been convicted of something that's now a profitable industry for this company? It does that exist, especially with the pushback on reparations just in general for descendants of slaves?
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I feel like this. You asked a loaded question. So the first thing, what was your
I
first
did.
part of the question?
Shit, I
So
don't
make sure.
remember myself.
Oh
No,
no,
no.
because you
So
snapped.
I guess the first part, because I was saying that all this sounds great, that we should be able to make an industry of this ourselves, right, and be accepted in this industry. But real, history tells us that it's not going to happen that easily.
Right.
And so what efforts are happening, or what policy legislation is being pushed to even allow Black people in this space? Because our area, we know that even in Chicago, there's been pushback from Black entrepreneurs, like, y'all not letting us in, we can't get no dispensaries, and so I'm sure that that's happening all around the country. And so what efforts are taking place to ensure that we have a space in this market, and to also ensure that the people that have been convicted of this opportunity that they're now using to make money, that they have space too?
So here in Illinois, we have something called the R3 program, where they give grants, and it stands for Restore, Reinvest, and Renew. So some of the focus areas they focus on is economic development, re-entry, violence prevention, things like that. And that's their form of reparations here in Illinois, to give back to the community. It still need work, because those of us who are on the ground doing the work, that's in the trenches, that's in the neighborhoods, we haven't seen any of that money. They give them to a lot of these white-led organizations, but that's another topic for another Monday. But I think that what it can actually take place, for example, with my partnership with the company Ethos, I have majority ownership. I own most seats, all the majority of the seats for my company. I make the final decisions, and I'm able to guide them on how I want my company to be structured and what is going on. And I have a multi-million-dollar partnership deal for that, for when I have my dispensaries. What has to happen is, and this is me personally, is for us to educate our community on what it is to be in the industry, because selling weed on the corner on Madison and Pulaski is not the same as starting an actual cannabis company, because there's so many regulations. You have to know policies, You have to know, you have to read, you have to know a lot of what's going on. You have to follow the news. It's not easy work. On top of me fighting gun violence as a hustle mommy, every day I'm researching and reading what's going on, because every day is something different on a local and federal level in the cannabis space. So we have to educate our community. I don't know if you remember, Tanisha, but a few months back, for like 2 months straight, I was giving free seminars with cannabis experts and cannabis entrepreneurs and business people across the country. One of my homies, Tucky, is out in Sacramento. He's a convicted felon that has a dispensary, Blunts and More. And he talked about how he started this, why he still was a convicted felon, and he didn't get his stuff expunged until years after he opened his dispensary. So we have to put more individuals who have that narrative, who have been successful in the space, on the front lines on a federal and a local level to really advocate. And we have to educate our people, because if you go and talk to someone that's on the southwest side of Chicago, or in Atlanta, or wherever you guys are from that got a hood at, which is all over this country, if you talk to them about what's going on the legal side of cannabis, they don't know. They just know they probably could get like 3.5 for a good deal off the street from their local weed man.
Hey, that's where I get lost. They be doing the measurements. I be like,
see, that's where that math comes in. Like, I don't know if it's new math or old math.
2 weeds, please.
Right. Right. I'm like, can I have 2 weeds?
Right.
So education is, from what I heard, and I totally agree with this, education is key. And it's no different in the cannabis industry than it is in any other form of industry or any other form of opportunity or business that you would have to segue into. And you don't have to have it all, because the cannabis industry especially is not one of those industries where you would enter alone. Like, you know what I mean? You're gonna have some form of a partnership or some strategic partnership or alignment, and because that's like a rule of thumb. Like, stay in your lane, pick your lane, stay in your lane, because you can get your millions out of your lane. But you have some people who's on this, they explore, and it's okay. But I think that whether you're a convicted felon or not, you know what I mean, you have to be very strategic. And so, you know what I mean, if you may, and it's like it's almost like the dope game, you know. You put it in somebody that you knew name, like you had money, you had all this other stuff, but you had stuff in your mama name, your auntie name, your cousin, baby mama name. So what you have to do is learn how to maneuver the system. You know what I mean? That what works for you. You're taking chances. You know what I mean? It's opportunity cost. So you take opportunity cost with the black market versus a legal market. You have to compare that ratio of how much you need to put in terms of time, sweat, equity, education, and find a balance. And that's where we struggle at as African Americans, is because we know about it and we participate in it, but you know what I mean, we don't necessarily put in the necessary time it is to be briefed on what's real and what's fake, or what we heard, or what's myth versus facts. So there's a lot of opportunity in education in that market in terms of industry, ancillary business, like she mentioned, easily 15% or more. Intellectual property, because it's an evolving industry. You know, when you come in with those intellectual property pieces, which is total ownership in your idea and concepts. Learning business. So just taking this again as a piece of something that we like, we enjoy, and that's also needed. Your body produces cannabinoids. This plant also produces cannabinoids. So therefore, you know what I mean?
Wait, what?
Cannabinoids.
It's education 101.
That's a big word. Can you put that in the chat so we can look it up? We don't even know how to spell that. You said cannabinoid.
She said
almond joy. I'm like, did you say almond joy?
So there's a lot of the medicinal properties and elements that we enjoy about the plant itself, and that separates the different strands of cannabis. And I mean, that also takes us from CBD or hemp to the cannabis plant. Knowing those medicinal properties and knowing what, like, if you ask a person, what you smoke? I don't smoke, but I like to take them edibles though. But why you don't smoke? The smoke messes with my throat a little bit, because they have other conditions and ailments that other people may not have, so they don't partake in the same consumption manners that other people do. But they still need the same medicinal benefits on whatever you're fighting or treating. I've seen people, cured from stage 4 cancer. To see survivors of some of these ailments and conditions.
Seizures.
Yes.
Yes.
Man,
epilepsy. Definitely.
All listen, there's so many, and the fact that we just get to the point where we study the plant. You see what I'm saying? So we back into that space where We know from an indigenous standpoint, and from those who have practiced on the black market and who has, utilized the plant, but it hasn't made the academia to be accredited to say this is what it is. But we know, and through research and development, this is why I also hump on that medicinal end of it, from the medical aspect of it.
Yeah,
it's to get us into academia, and that's where that intellectual property and all those things come to be more strongholds in generational wealth for the long haul. So as we think about moving forward, again, it's about having a basic understanding of this plant, how to move it, how to use it, how to utilize it, how to speak the terminology, and that helps your advocacy on the front end. So you're not, because you're already coming in as a Black African American, and you fit that stigma of wanting just to smoke weed, smell like weed, things that we know that happen, which also goes to the school level. Like, there are a lot of kids, like when we pass here in Georgia, we really passed on the backs of our children with these conditions. Yeah. And so therefore, but we haven't went back to make sure that the school system has adjusted its policies to be able to have these kids, because you have to take a kid off the property of the school, medicate them, and then bring them back.
Yep.
And we don't talk about our caregivers. Our caregivers pretty much develop a lot of other conditions like PTSD and the traumas and things that we have of just being a caregiver through this process. So there's a lot of conversations that has to be had around this conversation, and we're progressive in the sense of when we bring people together in these conversations and we educate more using platforms like what you provided today, that we're actually reaching the granular level and reaching our people, the people who probably need it the most, that will strike them to go want to research and use that cell phone to Google some things. You know what I mean? Somebody could put cannabinoid in the chat. You know what I mean? But cannabinoid, that is a key term. You know what I mean? That you should know about.
Most definitely.
And then not only that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said not only that, I think that for me, I talk about this all the time with the work that I do in the gun violence prevention space in Chicago. We have something called hood trauma that is from generational trauma, lack of socioeconomic resources in our community, and mix that together, we have communities that are lacking emotional intelligence and critical thinking skills because of what has been done to our communities for generations, and it's beyond the crack pandemic that happened in the 80s. What I'm interested in is seeing how cannabis from the CBD side and the THC side can actually be used to help a lot of people who have experienced high level trauma. Because what I've discovered is that a lot of my parents and family members who we have helped, who have lost kids and loved ones to gun violence, they use a lot of hardcore drugs, but a lot of people have now used cannabis to help them with their anxiety and things of that nature. So Black people, we have generational trauma since slavery. That's no question asked. So this also can be used to help us with issues that has been passed down from us from generations. But even now, for those of us that's in cities like Chicago, that is heartbreaking, because those of us that's here, we know, as Tanisha is in the same neighborhoods I'm in, we're advocating for stuff that is happening because no one is seen to be helping. And so how can we use CBD and these things to help with the mental trauma that we're facing as a people? And I think that's exited out the conversation when it should be on the forefront when it comes to what's going on with Black people, how we enter this space. Reparations, because when you talk about using cannabis money for reparations, I feel like I have an opinion on that. I feel like that.
No, it is.
Go ahead, Tanisha. You probably
no. I was just saying, come on with it, and like keep it real, because we want to know.
Yes, I feel like it's pointless. I don't want to use cannabis money for reparations. They owe us. Don't use something that is additional.
Already owe, right?
That's additional money.
Supplanting. We don't want to supplant.
You want to say, oh, well, we messed up, so we just gonna use this money to pay off. No, give us our shit before then. Sorry for cursing, but that's
hold on, Ariel. Hold on, production. Can we bring her up on screen real big so people can really feel this word that she's dropping? Y'all go ahead and say that again, goddamn it.
I do not want cannabis money to be a part of our reparations. We need our money before cannabis became legal. If this never became legal, that means that we wasn't going to get the money. I feel like cannabis should be another industry, just like the automotive or any other industry, where we get in and we're able to make money. But you still owe us a check from our ancestors being taken from Africa and from us coming here and building up a country where we are still not seen as equals. And it's in the law. So don't use cannabis money and the economic boom from that to say, oh, we gave you your 40 acres in a mule. Because we need to check before then. This is additional money for us. You guys owe us. And that's on period. Thank you.
So, and because I brought up cannabis and reparation in the same context, it's not. And so, I just take the posture and I support reparations 1,000%, right? But I can't miss what I ain't never had, right? And I can sit here and wait for it, argue, spend that opportunity cost and trying to push those pieces. Then me seeking out the opportunity to understand I can make millions and that my people can also benefit off of it. You know what I mean? I look at this COVID relief as a form of reparation of stimulating the economy, because a lot of people took the opportunity of some of this money that was put out here. But what we did know was that a lot of us was not even in position to do nothing with it. And so what I'm saying is let's take a step back. And as we talk about the traumas, that's why we talk about compassion. Like we come off, and I overstand. And I think this may be just a sign of maturity because I've been in the space so long, and you get frustrated, and I understand the anger and the trauma. But if we don't have an educated conversation to be able to maneuver our way, to be able to articulate those things, to be able to show where we can take this money and create opportunity, to create models where this can be shown, because policy is created because of some problem.
So this is what I got to say about that, right? Y'all already know I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they didn't burn down our shit. So listen, let me tell you right now, I don't consider reparations anything that white people will get or have equal access to getting. And that's just point blank. So
they still owe y'all.
Yeah, we owe. So it's like, if everybody's getting a $10,000 check because Biden wants to, eliminate the wealth gap, and it's like, well, if we give $10,000 to African Americans so we can eliminate their college debt, but we're gonna give the $10,000 to white people too, like that ain't no damn reparations. Like we need a whole separate check for that. So that's where I'm at. But I do understand what you're saying. It definitely helps, but
I feel like the cannabis conversation, if you're going to talk about give Black people an opportunity in the cannabis space, I think we should not use the word reparations. I feel like that it needs to be another word.
I know. So
restitution.
So that piece. So that's why I say, forgive me for even, and I think it's taken out of context more so when we use the word reparation in cannabis. What I'm saying is, we're looking to seek something to do something, right? We want to close the gap. We want to free our people. We want to do all these things, right?
Yeah.
That one act would do. Ultimately, that's what we're looking at. But if we would take baby steps, knowing that you owe me, right? Long as I owe you, you used to have a saying when we was a kid, but long as I owe you, you're gonna be broke. Well, I need you to start paying toward that debt. So using the opportunity to say and leverage that, say, like, listen, man, we know that people have been leveraged against. We know the racial traumas. We know these things. So therefore, we want to see these advantages that's going to put us up on the totem pole and not making us equal per se. We're getting these concessions because we're advocating for these concessions because we deserve it. Because we know that, and they're recognizing some of these pieces when we let these people out of jail and these pardons and forgiveness and letting people re-enter society where overall they traditionally wouldn't.
But so, can we pause right there, because I want to hit on that point too. What is that looking like when we're again talking about legalizing this industry and it's becoming widespread around the country, and the policies or the reforms being put in place to free people that have sold drugs? What is that looking like? It's because I haven't heard much about it lately. And so are they still sitting in jail? Because even Christine in the chat was saying it's a 3-strike law in California. Some people sitting in jail for life for selling weed. And so what are those efforts looking like? Because it's like we build these businesses, but bring our families back.
So we need so that needs to be attacked on the federal level. I know different local governments are doing things. A state attorney, Kim Fox, thousands of people were, their cannabis records were expunged. But here's my beef with that again. My beef with that is that if you were selling drugs from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, or whatever the case may be, you had a Glock on you. There's no way you was a drug dealer and you did not have no form of a gun. So if you have a marijuana or any illegal substance record, more than likely you have a gun charge. So that still puts you at a point where if you are a convicted felon, you cannot enter this space. So there's still some language and things that needs to be fixed and some things that needs to be addressed about what's going on. And this is just a cultural thing. I'm from Inglewood on the south side of Chicago. I never met a drug dealer who was selling weed who did not have a gun on them. Because you're at risk of getting robbed, someone trying you, you're protecting your turf. That's just a part of the inner city culture. So those are the things that I think is unrealistic. I'm not going to say that expunging those who have gun charges, marijuana charges without guns was not a step. It's step one. And I know things start in increments, but we have to look at those who really can benefit from this industry, who have gun charges, who may not be able to enter the space or do a lot of things on the cannabis plant touching side because they have gun charges. So I think that's problematic.
But you also can't. I mean, and this goes to the piece of the federal government. Is you saying that? I mean, I see the framework being created, but again, it's still going to go on that local government to enact those things, because those things were probably done on the state level or local level. So, you know what I mean? Again, the local level advocacy, as you try to attack it, there's not going to be, in my opinion, going to be a blanket. There will be a framework, an opportunity. And I do believe that when Kwanzaa Hall was there, he attempted, to introduce some legislation that will take us in that direction. But here again, we as the Black community wasn't necessarily prepared for the long haul. You know what I mean? That, that's a trick. I try to stay out of that space, but legislating and looking at what we're doing at the local level to make sure that it goes up, and that what goes up is an inverted pyramid, that it comes down. Almost kind of like the infrastructure act money that got coming out. It's so much wrapped up in that infrastructure money. It's not just about infrastructure. Same thing with the Black Wall Street, not Black Wall Street, but the Black Agenda piece that we heard about once upon a time. There was all these things that, what does that mean? You know what I mean? That means there was opportunity and money that's there to help society get back and pour money into these communities where otherwise wouldn't be there. So we have to, for what we want to see, I often see people jump and leave this space when opportunity comes their way. So they got an opportunity on the little gig, so the work that they put in, I'm gone, y'all, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? So I can't mind, but I'm gonna catch y'all later on. I'm gonna reach back and call, hit your line. But that can't be the mentality. So there's a lot of things that we have to fix as a people at the same time, and use this conversation as an inviting conversation, because even here in Atlanta or here in Georgia, there's a stigma around cannabis. And so even though baby boomers are becoming the number one population, you know what I mean, of new participants, we have a whole conversation that we have to do as a community. And I want to make sure that we get there so that we can take full advantage of all of these opportunities. Make sure that we have people that are becoming financially literate, because we have people. Because when you talk about the industry and the war on drugs, there are people that didn't finish high school. There was people that was incarcerated for a period of time. So they've been removed from society. They don't have all those skills. But then you have some people who've been incarcerated who has gotten the benefit of society and education and gotten certifications and degrees and became very touched. So, you know what I mean? That, as we talk about criminal justice reform, man, there's a whole conversation that has to be had, because I see conversation where we're not unable to make a decision, where we're almost in the wild, wild west again, and we're allowing this to happen, and they're going to come back and leverage that back over our head. I don't know about anywhere else, but I know here in Atlanta, COVID has made crime uptick. That was in the paper, period. But what do we do to get a handle on it? You know what I mean? And so as we hear about the defund the police movement, and we look at these triggers and the argument and what actually can happen, how do we really shape what that looks like? We're all on different pages. So therefore, no movement is happening, and the only movement that's going to happen is one that's going to be adverse to the people, because we know that, hey, if you can't fix it, then we will. And so by removing people out of the pieces, and it's so much that, you know what I mean, these are crimes of opportunity where we know that we're getting away with it, until that time comes that we didn't get away with it. And now,
so actually, are you saying that policies need to be passed for like those who have gun charges with a couple with the marijuana charge? Are you saying that we need to find or create policies for those who don't have a violent offense, but just simply have the gun charge with them, so that they have more access to the industry? Is that what you're saying that needs to happen?
I'm saying the framework would allow for that to happen on a case-by-case basis, where people will have an appeal or recourse process to appeal their positions to have the cases reviewed to fit this criteria. So, you know what I mean? One thing about it, and it ain't just one case or two cases. And I mean, just be real. We have some people that are repeat offenders, but the social economic piece of all of that, and also looking at, like, the incarceration was meant to be more restorative than it was to be punitive. So let's look at it from that lens and where this person is and what opportunities exist. I know people that's coming home because of COVID who had extensive sentences. I know people that's in halfway houses right now as we're trying to change things on the outside, like the guidelines for having a halfway house has changed because of COVID. So there's still opportunity, right? So here's the opportunity where some people who was operating halfway houses or these homes to get people back into society now have to acquire more space, but there's also more money for that. And we also want to make sure that the policies that we have are complementing the things that are actually happening. Like, we're going into a new norm that will be the new norms. Things are not as we knew them before. And we have opportunity to shape those things, but you have to be in the know. You have to have the pieces. And often we're looked across because we say, oh, we couldn't find a black person that fit this criteria. We needed a certified such. We have to come together as a community and put in a lot of these contracts, creation of jobs where you are able to waive those opportunities that say, I can look past your criminal offense and hire you and put money in your pocket. That's where we're going to make the win at, because again, we choose and operate in our community what we do. But until we do actually do those things in a creative way, it may not be the traditional way that we're used to going at things. But one thing about policy and about law, period, it's about what you can justify.
All right, that we got, Chris, I hate to cut you off, but we got a couple more minutes, so I want to, us to get to a chance to like share our final thoughts. Again, drop the line that I hope y'all enjoying this conversation so far. Share it out, show some love, show some likes. If you enjoy the plant, as I'm learning new terminology, show some love, especially because this conversation is for you and as an advocates for you. But I just want to provide some space for you guys to provide your final thoughts around this conversation, and and then we're gonna close out. So whoever wants to go first, let's get it.
I'll go. Only thing I would say is that no matter where you are, make sure you know what's going on federally. Look up the MORE Act. Really study the MORE Act, seeing what's going on each day, because they're always amending and changing things. So follow the MORE Act, because getting cannabis off the controlled substance list is going to be a game changer. But we also want to make sure that the MORE Act includes that convicted felons are able to work in the cannabis space. Also on your local level, to Chris' point, make sure that you know what's happening in your state government, your city government, and make sure that you're advocating on that end. Because like even here in Illinois, we have the R3 grant, where money that is made from the cannabis industry is now going back to reinvesting into communities that's on the south and west side of Chicago. But make sure that it's going to boots on the ground people and individuals who's heavily invested into the community. Also, start advocating more to help individuals who are in the community who may not be aware of what's happening or understand, just like how Tanisha thought he said, I'm enjoy. We have to start teaching each other about these terms and about what's the benefit of cannabis outside of just selling weed, about ways you could get in on the consulting side, starting products, lifestyle brands. Heck, I know someone that made $1 million last year off of selling cannabis-inspired t-shirts. There's a way to check the bag. And I'm all about our people getting money. Black people, we should not be struggling at all. And I feel like, especially in this space where our great granddaddies was out here at the Cotton Club selling weed, listening to Cab Calloway. Come on, we need to make some money. Josephine Baker and Billie Holiday was advocate for cannabis. We have to come into the space for that reason, that our forefathers came forth and they were advocating and they used it to make money and things of that nature. So we're going to come in and educate each other, and we're going to make a difference, and we're going to make sure this money goes back to building the communities that our grandparents built.
Come on now. What you got, Mr. Brown, to close us out?
I'm just gonna close you out. Say the Ariel is a dope person, to make sure you follow her. Get a part of an organization. Get a part of the community. Get involved. On top of the money part, get educated. Like I said, this is a healing plant, and so almost without this plant, you almost probably couldn't survive to even get educated on it, because your anxiety and the pressures and traumas of the world right now is hidden. So, you know, get involved, get educated. Like she said, there's so many opportunities. Start the learning process. You know, find out what's going on in your state. Find out what's going on in your local municipality. And if not, put yourself forward. You know what I mean? Learn about it and start to get and put yourself forward. But there's so much opportunity. I appreciate you guys for having us on. For me, you can follow Kelvin Georgia at mycannabisspot.com. You can follow me personally at CB, the number 4 ATL. We always out here doing the work, man. We're doing the work of the people.
All right, Jay and Neo, y'all want to close out with anything?
I just say, Chris, Ariel, thank you so much for being on our broadcast today. I learned a lot. I hope folks that are watching share this video just so we can get more knowledge about this. Definitely will be paying attention to these federal laws.
Yeah.
Awesome. I would say this was a very informative conversation, a lot of great information. I would be remiss if I did not say two things. Individualized health plans is something that the Atlanta Student Coalition and I are pushing. Chris made a great point about how educators, especially special education teachers like myself, we have students that have epilepsy and other health impairments, and they're using the oils, and we have to take them off site. You have to get certified for that. It's a lot. We have a shortage of teachers, and we also have a shortage of Black educators who are in this area. And so we need to get more knowledgeable about this. I also would be remiss to say that this is a billion-dollar industry connecting to housing and education. 15,000 students in Georgia were suspended in 2019. 68% of that was due to attendance and drugs. 32% connected to marijuana, where Black and brown kids were disproportionately put out of school, expelled, or in juvenile, right? So that's going to what? Another industry, the prison industry, that's making people's billions of dollars. Now, that legislation that Chris mentioned in 2018, attendance policies were changed because white students, not making this racial at all, but these are facts. Suicides connected to opioids, overdoses, etc., so forth, were they suspended, expelled? No. 64% of kids out of school because of attendance, 32% out of school, Black and brown, because they smelled like marijuana. They looked like they had it. They had residue in their book bag. And so while we're advocating for those who are in jail and prison, we also got to advocate for our kids. And I couldn't let our conversation go without saying that.
Man,
Amen.
You hit that. That's a major fact. I think that it only becomes a war on drugs when it affects white people, you know, but right. Man, we'll save that for another time. But thank you guys so much for joining us, Ariel, Chris, and family who in the chat going off, all you cannabis users, supporters, all that stuff. Y'all check us out next Monday. I'm talking about next month. We'll be back next Monday, same time, same place, talking the real shit. Until then, y'all be good.